The station was louder than her heartbeat, yet all she could hear was the sound of her own silence. Announcements blurred into echoes above her, footsteps collided on the tiles. Luggage wheels sang their rough song against the floor. People moved as though they were racing toward something. She only stood still. The red scarf slipped once from her shoulder, caught by the rush of air as a train passed. She gripped it quickly, fingers trembling, as though it were the last piece of herself she still owned. Stranger brushed against her arm, muttered an apology, but she didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed, unblinking. At the departure gate were faces blurred and dissolved like ghosts she could never catch. Her suitcase sat by her side, small, worn. One of its zippers hung broken, like a wound refusing to close. She touched the handle, then let go, as if unsure whether it belonged to her anymore. The cracked watch on her wrist ticked unevenly, skipping seconds as if time itself had grown tired of waiting. She pressed the glass with her thumb, feeling the fracture beneath her skin. For years, she had marked time with that watch, counting, waiting, breathing in silence. Now every skip felt like a warning. Her hair fell forward as the wind from another departing train lifted and scattered it. She pushed it back with shaking fingers, her nails pressing against her palm harder than she realized. A thought crossed her, quiet, sharp. How much longer will I be the one waiting? Across the crowd, someone laughed. The sound snapped something inside her chest. She turned her face, not toward the laughter, but toward the emptiness it left behind. Her eyes narrowed. For the first time in years, they did not look lost. They searched. They hunted. A child ran past her with a balloon tied around his wrist. The red ribbon swayed as he disappeared into the crowd. Her gaze followed it until the color bled into the swarm of moving bodies. Her scarf shifted again on her shoulder, catching the same restless wind. Not today, she whispered, though no one heard. And perhaps she meant it only for herself. The station roared on, unaware that something fragile had shifted inside her silence. She tightened her grip on the suitcase handle, pulling it closer. The cracked watch pulsed against her skin, irregular, impatient. Somewhere deep in the crowd, a shadow moved in a way that was not ordinary. She felt it before she saw it, like the air changing before a storm. Her breath caught, her lips parted, but she didn't call out. She only waited, and in that waiting, revenge began to breathe. The crowd thinned and swelled like waves, yet she stood at the edge of it all, suitcase resting against her leg, scarf heavy on her shoulder. She didn't move, though the announcer's voice urged passengers forward. Instead, she let her eyes drift, catching fragments of lives that weren't hers. A man folded a child into his arms, the little boy squealing with delight. A young woman laughed into her lover's chest, clinging to him, as though the world might split them apart. These moments, soft, unguarded, were everywhere around her, and she, wrapped in silence, was invisible to them. Her hand tightened around the suitcase handle. It wasn't just a bag. It was older than the shoes she wore, older than the coat across her shoulders. She remembered its first journey, the day her father bought it second-hand, setting it on the kitchen floor with pride. "It'll carry our tomorrows," he had said, running his rough hand across its seams. She had been a child then, too small to understand why he smiled, as if the world was kinder than it truly was. Years later, when he was gone, she would trace her fingers over the same worn leather and whisper back, "Where did you leave our tomorrows?" Now the suitcase held little: a change of clothes, a notebook with faded ink, a photograph so creased the faces seemed blurred. Yet its weight was more than what her arms carried. It was the weight of debts unpaid, of silence swallowed, of nights where she counted coins instead of hours of sleep. The cracked watch ticked unevenly against her wrist. Time was not on her side, but she had learned long ago to keep walking even when her shoes had holes. Still, a question gnawed at her chest. What if this was all she would ever be? The scarf shifted again, its red fabric brushing her jawline, as though reminding her of the blood she once swore she'd never forget. She closed her eyes for a moment, and in that dark, her father's voice returned, calm, tired, but certain. "One day, silence will no longer be your prison. It will be your weapon." Her breath trembled as she opened her eyes. Someone was watching her. She felt it before she confirmed. It's a strange, intentional quiet that trails behind a gaze. Across the crowd, a man lingered, not rushing like the others, not fumbling with a ticket or phone. He was only watching. Not cruelly, not kindly. Just there, still and deliberate, as though he knew her silence had weight. She looked away quickly, pulling her suitcase closer, but her chest tightened, unsettled. The announcement echoed again, calling for final boarding. Her feet shifted forward, but then stopped. The scarf slipped halfway down her arm. The watch skipped another second. Her lips pressed into a faint, uncertain smile. And then she hesitated. The loudspeaker's voice fractured again through the air, calling for boarding. She shifted her weight. Suitcase tugged forward, yet her feet betrayed her. They stayed rooted. The scarf brushed against her arm, as if reminding her that silence still held her in its grip. She dared another glance. He hadn't moved. The man was still there, as though the flow of the station did not touch him. He leaned against a pillar, one shoulder dipped lower than the other, his shoes scuffed beyond repair, not careless worn like someone who had walked too far for too long. A ticket half crumpled in his hand, a wallet peeking from his coat pocket, leather cracked, edges frayed. For a moment, when he adjusted his stance, she caught the glimpse of something inside, a folded photograph, its corner bent, its image unseen, but it glowed with the weight of someone he had once refused to forget. Her chest tightened. She knew that kind of memory, the kind that lived not in the past, but in the veins. The station lights flickered as thunder growled outside, low but certain. A few drops of rain streaked against the glass panels above, like the sky was holding back something heavier. She watched the crowd move faster, everyone rushing to beat the storm. Everyone except the two of them. Her suitcase handle was damp, beneath her palm, or maybe her hand was sweating. She couldn't tell. Why him? Why here? The thought unsettled her, curling like smoke inside her chest. She wasn't one to believe in fate. Fate had never fed her. Fate had never paid the rent when hunger gnawed louder than her breath. Fate had only taken and taken again. Yet still, her eyes lingered. He looked up then, directly. Their eyes caught across the restless crowd. His expression was unreadable. Threat, not comfort, not even curiosity. Just a weight, like a mirror, invisible, yet exact. She turned away sharply, breath shaking. Her father's voice brushed against her memory once more. Trust silence. It reveals more than words ever will. The scarf slipped lower, dangling from her arm now, its red fabric grazing the floor tiles. She bent to catch it, but her hands shook. Her cracked watch skipped another beat, reminding her of the train she was supposed to board. The announcement blared again. Final call. She should move. She had to move. Every step she didn't take tied her tighter to something she couldn't name. The thunder cracked harder outside. The rain began, fierce against glass, drowning out even the station's noise. Her suitcase handle cut into her palm. She pulled it forward. One step, but she stopped, because when she looked up again, he was gone, and the silence he left behind was heavier than the storm. The storm rattled against the station's glass ceiling, rain streaking down like veins, splitting the sky. Her chest rose too fast, too uneven, as she clutched the suitcase tighter. She almost moved, almost boarded, almost disappeared into the safety of leaving. But something inside her cracked. Her steps faltered, and she turned her head once more. Searching. The crowd parted briefly, revealing a flash of him again. He wasn't gone. He was there further down, by the benches where the weary sat with slumped shoulders. His presence was quiet, deliberate, as though he had been waiting for her to notice. Her scarf slipped completely this time, falling from her arm onto the wet floor. She didn't bend to catch it. The red fabric lay bleeding against the gray tiles, soaking in the rainwater dragged in by rushing shoes. She stared at it, unable to move. Then he stepped forward, calm/steady, unshaken by the storm or the rush of bodies around him. He bent, picked up the scarf, and for a breathless moment, he held it. His fingers brushed its edge with the kind of care people usually save for fragile things already broken. Her throat closed. When he looked at her, scarf in hand, his gaze did not ask questions. It offered something else, maybe, or surrender. She couldn't tell. The cracked watch skipped again, almost in protest. She touched it with her other hand, pressing the glass until it bit her skin. Don't look back, she told herself. Don't look at him. But she did. He walked toward her, scarf folded loosely in his palm. The station noise swelled and yet dulled at the same time, as if the world wanted to both reveal and conceal what passed between them. Passengers glanced, subtle frowns, curious whispers. Some people carry more than just bags, a woman muttered under her breath as she brushed past. They carry silence. The words burned through her, uninvited, but piercingly true. She swallowed hard. Her knees felt weak, and she gripped the suitcase handle to keep herself upright. Her reflection stared back at her from the glossy eyes, trembling lips, a girl too small to hold so much, and yet here she was, carrying it anyway. He stopped just in front of her, close enough that she could see the creases around his eyes, the rain still clinging to his hair. He extended the scarf, not forceful, not hesitant, only steady. Her hand twitched toward it, but froze midair. If she took it, something would change. If she refused, something else would. The station's announcement broke again, urgent, calling for departure. Her eyes lifted to meet his, caught between running and reaching, and in that suspended scarf still hovered between them, his hand steady, hers trembling. The storm pressed harder against the station walls, thunder rolling like the earth itself had chosen sides, and then, the smallest detail betrayed him. When he adjusted the scarf, the folded photograph from his wallet slipped free, fluttering toward the floor. She saw it before he did. Instinctively, she bent to catch it, her suitcase shifting, her hand brushing the damp tile. Her breath froze. It wasn't just any photograph. It was the same scarf, her scarf draped around the shoulders of a little girl. A girl with wide, bright eyes, a girl who wasn't her. Her gaze darted upward, heart pounding. He froze to realization striking in his silence. He didn't snatch the photo back. He only let her see it, as though he knew hiding it would be pointless. The scarf, between them, burned heavier now. Not just fabric, not just memory. It had belonged to someone else. First, his daughter. The watch ticked against her wrist, skipping seconds again. Time pulling her backward and forward at once. She heard her father's voice return, only this time, the words twisted, echoing through her chest differently. One day, silence will no longer be your prison. It will be your weapon. A shiver tore through her spine. Silence. His silence. Her silence. Were they the same? Or was his silence the cage that had birthed hers? She staggered back a step, suitcase wheels screeching against the wet floor. For a moment, she wanted to run board the train, vanish into the blur of destinations, but her feet betrayed her again. They planted, heavy, because she already knew something she couldn't unknow. This wasn't coincidence. The scarf belonged to his daughter, and his company was the very one she had applied to just days before. Desperate for work, desperate to escape the debts and hunger pressing against her ribs. She hadn't known his name until now, but she saw it embossed on the folder peeking from his coat pocket. It was his. All of it. The storm outside screamed against the glass. Her heartbeat matched it, violent, unforgiving. She thought of her father's suitcase, of the promise of tomorrows, of debts unpaid, voices silenced, and now this man standing in front of her, tangled into her life before she had even agreed to it. Her chest heaved. The scarf slipped again from his hand. She didn't catch it. Instead, she pulled her suitcase sharply forward, her cracked watch flashing under the harsh station light, not toward the train, not away from him, toward the doors at the far end of the platform. And with every step, she knew there was no return. She was walked. The station was quieter now, though the storm still raged outside. The loudspeaker's announcements had faded into tired repetition, but she no longer heard them. Her footsteps echoed against the platform tiles as she pushed the suitcase forward, each wheel dragging like resistance itself. She stopped. He was behind her. She didn't need to turn to know. Silence carried him. She gripped the suitcase handle so tightly her knuckles ached when she finally turned. He stood only a few paces away. The scarf hung from his hand again, damp but unyielding. Between them, the stormlight flashed through the glass ceiling, painting his face with fractured lines. "You dropped this," he said at last, his voice low, worn. The words broke something inside her. After all the silence, hearing him was almost unbearable. Her eyes flicked to the scarf, then back to him. "It's not mine." His jaw tightened, though not with anger. He stepped closer, unfolding the fabric carefully. "It belonged to my daughter. She waited here once, just like you." His eyes shifted briefly, as though seeing a ghost only he could still recognize. Her breath faltered. "Waited here once." The suitcase handle dug into her palm. Her father's voice rose again, but softer this time, as though altered by truth. "One day silence will no longer be your prison. It will be your weapon." She swallowed hard, forcing words out. "Why me?" His gaze fixed on her with the weight of years. "Because you remind me of her. Not in your face. In the way you hold your silence, like it costs you something." Her throat burned. She wanted to scream that she wasn't his daughter's echo, that she was her own fracture, her own storm. But when she tried, nothing left her lips, only silence. He extended the scarf again, his hands steady. Take it, not as hers, as yours. Carry it forward. Her cracked watch pulsed against her wrist, skipping seconds like before. But suddenly, she understood. It wasn't broken, it was warning her. Not every second could be held. Some would always slip away. She let go of the suitcase handle. For the first time, the weight left her. She reached forward, her trembling fingers brushing against the scarf. When she took it, it wasn't surrender, it was inheritance. The storm outside broke in a final roar, but inside the station, she felt something quieter. A rebirth. Her suitcase remained on the ground, forgotten. She didn't need it anymore. She wrapped the scarf once around her shoulders, then stepped back. He watched her, but didn't follow. There was no claim in his eyes, only release. Their silence met one last time, heavy but no longer suffocating. She turned toward the doors, and as she walked into the rain, her cracked watch skipped another second before finally falling into rhythm. Not every stranger you help is meant to stay, but some leave you changed forever. The storm had passed. Puddles clung to the streets, reflecting fragments of broken sky, but the air was calmer now, almost forgiving. She walked slowly, the city humming faintly around her, her shoulders lighter than they had been in years. The suitcase was gone, left behind, like the debts she could no longer carry. In its place, the red scarf rested round her neck, not heavy, not bleeding with old grief. It was hers now, not as inheritance, not as burden, but as reminder. Her cracked watch ticked evenly for once, its rhythm steady against her wrist. She touched it absently, marveling at the simple sound. For so long, she had cursed its broken time, convinced it mocked her waiting. But now she understood. It hadn't betrayed her. It had prepared her, teaching her to live, even in the skipped beats, to keep moving through silence. She passed a cafe window where families sat laughing, lovers leaned close, strangers poured coffee into weary hands. For a moment, she paused, letting her reflection blur with theirs. She no longer felt invisible. Different, yes. Alone, yes. But not unseen. Her father's words returned, gentler now. One day, silence will no longer be your prison. It will be your weapon. She smiled faintly, pulling the scarf tighter around her shoulders. A street vendor offered her an umbrella as drops of rain began again. She shook her head softly, murmuring thanks. The drizzle felt different now, less like a storm, more like a baptism. She turned down a narrow lane, where the noise of the city softened to the quiet tread of her footsteps. In the distance, lights flickered from windows, warm and unhurried. Life carried on. The scarf's edge brushed her cheek, and she thought of him, the stranger in the station, his silence mirroring her own. Not love, not fate. Something else. Recognition. Sometimes love is not romance, it's recognition. The phrase lingered inside her, more anchor than wound. She would never fully know his story, nor he hers. That was the truth of strangers who meet at thresholds. They leave without answers, only echoes. Yet echoes had power. Echoes reshaped silence. At the corner of the lane, she stopped. A child ran past her, chasing a ball, his laughter spilling into the night. She closed her eyes, inhaled the damp air, and let it settle into her chest like peace. The scarf was warm. The watch was steady. Her steps were lighter. She did not know where she was going next. But for the first time, the not knowing didn't feel like loss. It felt like beginning. And perhaps the cruelest, kindest truth was this. Not all silence needs to be broken. Some silences are meant to be carried.